Hi everyone, Baker on the dark side. So it's the day before Mother's Day, trying to get all my chores done. But one of the things I thought would be nice is to have some cinnamon rolls for the brunch. So for you guys who do brunch, this will help you. So the first step is the yeast activation. So I have this yeast that, I like to activate ahead of time to make sure it's good, it works. You want to make sure your yeast is good or your rolls, bread, whatever you're making isn't going to work out. So you take this nice like quarter cup of lukewarm water. They say 110 degrees Fahrenheit. For you guys who don't have thermometers, like a lukewarm bath. Like if you were going to take a bath, it's going to be a little warmer than your skin, nice lukewarm, like if you were going to do that. So that's how I gauge it. We are going to put in what would be a packet of yeast. Now I buy it in bulk, but a packet of yeast is 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. So you're going to take that yeast and you're going to sprinkle it over the water in this cup because we're trying to activate it. So there's my 2 teaspoons and then my 1/4 teaspoon. You don't need a ton of yeast. All right, and then what I like to do is I like to add a dash of sugar. Maybe like 1/4 teaspoon, let's just say. That helps the yeast get activated a little bit faster. And then I always mix it with a fork. And you gotta scrape the sides, scrape, scrape, scrape. You scrape the sides. You wanna get it so it's definitely mixing in that yeast and sugar together. All right, it's gonna look like muddy water. All right, so it looks like that when you start. Now you put a timer on for 10 minutes. So I'm putting my timer on. And then what I'm gonna tell you is that you wanna see some foam. You wanna see that it's bubbling. So I'm gonna show you what it looks like when we get done, okay? Hi, so I'm back. So our yeast actually got foamy, so I know it's active, it's working. I'm sorry you can't see that too well. But that's how you know. If you see foam, then it's definitely active, it's working. And that way you don't have to worry whether your yeast is working or not. So the next thing you do is you need to warm your milk. Now, I don't do milk. I actually use half and half. So I'm gonna put that in the microwave and I'm gonna warm it. You still wanna keep within that 110 degrees. You don't wanna get too hot. And then we're gonna add our butter. All right, so I took the half and half out of the microwave. I put it in for a little less than a minute. If you have a thermometer, it's great to do a surface thing. It says it's 98 degrees. Okay, so I can't stress enough. You do not wanna be over 110. If you are, then just, wait it out until it gets down there. You can stir it, that helps. Now, I'm gonna add my sugar. So I need 1/3 cup of sugar. You can do 1/4 cup too if you like less sugar, that's fine. But I usually add this to my milk. So I'm gonna do that. And that's to kind of help it dissolve a little bit. So you've got that in there. And now I'm gonna add my butter. So I've got half a stick of butter. Now I'm gonna put it in here and I'm gonna see if it'll melt. If it doesn't seem like it's gonna incorporate easily, then I am going to put it back in the microwave for just another 10 seconds or so. Typically butter does melt fairly easily, but you don't want it to do too much. And it's okay if it's like a little bit, if it's pretty soft, it's okay. I just want to make sure that it's going to get incorporated. So now I'm going to just do the temperature one more time, just to make sure that we're not too hot. So we are down to 86 degrees. So the butter is still a little bit chunky. So I'm gonna go and just put it in for like 10 seconds more. Okay. So I did it a little 10 seconds more, and I'm stirring it. If you get this too hot, it is going to kill the yeast and you will have hockey pucks. Very important. So one more time, I'm gonna measure it one more time, and we are at 98 degrees. Okay, it's a little low. I would say it's better to be low than too high because you don't kill the yeast, and you can always make up for that in the rise. Okay, so we've got our milk. I've got 3 eggs that I'm going to whip up just to get them easily incorporated when we start making the dough. All right, and I just want you to see the yeast. So now you can really see that yeast is very foamy, very foamy. Here, I'll show you in a spoon. See that? Your yeast should look like that. That's what your yeast should look like. If your yeast does not look like this, then it is not active, okay? All right, I'm gonna set this aside, get my mixer, and we're going to mix this baby. Okay, now it's time for the mixing. This is really crucial. First, it really does help you if you have a stand mixer to do a lot of the work. But if you want to work out for your arms, this would definitely do it. You need a dough hook. This is a dough hook. If you never knew what this was for, it's for breads. Okay, so I'm gonna put that on. Now, what I usually do is I use 2 types of flour. I like to do the half all-purpose, and I do half bread flour. The bread flour gives it more gluten and just texture. So I'm going to put my 2 cups of bread flour in. And then I'm going to put, I'm going to start with like 3.5 cups. I usually like to reserve the last half just to see if I need more. It's a little tough. You want to make sure that the dough is elasticy and that it is, you know, that it is pliable. So I got the flour in there. I'm going to add that butter, melted butter, in half and half in there. I'm going to add the eggs in there. The eggs have to be at room temperature. If they're cold, it's going to wreak havoc on your yeast. All right, and I'm going to put my nice foamy yeast in there. So everything's going in. The sugar was with the milk, if you don't remember. And then I have 3/4 teaspoon of light salt. You know me, light salt. Okay. I'm going to keep this flour actually near me in case I need to add more. So what we're going to do is we're going to start mixing this. Now, the tip is that you really have to mix this at least 10 minutes once you get it to form into a ball. Like once you get it formed and it's going away from the sides of the bowl, you still need to knead it for at least 10 minutes. So you're gonna do that with your own hands if you don't have a stand mixer. Now, I have half a stick of butter that I'm gonna start adding in here now. This is soft, room temperature butter. I save a little bit to get incorporated in here. Now, when you start doing this, you definitely have to up it, so you're not gonna hear me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start getting this to where we need to be, and then I'll show you what it's supposed to look like, okay? So I want you to see from this perspective, that is too sticky, okay? So we are definitely going to be adding some flour to this. It's been mixing a couple minutes now, so we're just gonna add some flour to this. You see how it's starting to come away from the bowl? But it takes a while. You got to get that flour to be incorporated. You don't want to add too much flour. It's going to make it tough. So you know how I talked about scraping? you don't have to worry about scraping in this case. The dough is going to do that for you. So now I'm going to stop it for a minute, because what I want to do is make sure that I do take it away from the bowl. Now you see how this is sticking to my hands? Do you see that? So that's still too sticky, okay? But it's very close. See that? It's very sticky. Okay. So now I'm going to turn it back on and add some more flour. So a little bit at a time, you want to add the flour. This is a slightly sticky dough. It's not going to be like a pizza dough. It is a little bit softer. All right, so I added it all the way around, and it's going to keep mixing. I got this on medium. Like I said, you're going to mix this for at least 10 minutes eventually, but you got to get it to the point where it comes into being one dough, okay? All right, you see that? One dough. That's what you're looking for. Now you're going to mix it at least 10 minutes. All right, my dough has been kneading and working for its 10 minutes now, and it is ready to rest. All right, so here's my dough. There it is. See it? Pliable, not too sticky, just a little sticky, because like I said, this is a softer dough. But see that? Got that? Okay. So now it's out of the bowl. And this is one of the best things that I ever did. So in the restaurant business, you have a lot of these containers. You can get these on Amazon, I'm sure, web restaurant store, your local restaurant store. This one is 3.5 quart, and it has the lines on it. So, and it has a nice plastic lid. I use this mostly now just for bread dough. So, you put this in the bottom. I oiled this so it doesn't stick. You're going to get it as even as possible. Okay? Now, why am I doing this? Because how many times have you looked at your dough and you're like, did it double? I don't know. This takes all the guesswork out. So you cover it, and you see how it's at the 1 quart line? So there's a 2 quart line. So when this reaches at least the 2 quart line, you know that your dough has doubled. That is my baker's trick for you. All right, so now, how to get it to rise. It's pretty warm here today, so I have like a screened porch or whatever. I think it's gonna rise just fine. But on those times where it might be cold, you can do one of 2 things. Here's my baker's secrets to you. 1, you can put it in your oven on about 150 degrees, really low, like, or if it has a warm function, a warm function. Some ovens do have a proof function. They call it proofing in the baking business. My air fryer has a proofing function, and it puts it actually at 100 degrees on that one. I think it kicks out a lot of heat though, that's why. The other option, option 2, now in the bakery we use what's called proof boxes. These are steamy like boxes. They're like moisture ridden and they're warm, like being in the tropics or a sauna. You can kind of get that proof box out of your dishwasher. I know this is going to sound funny, but if your dishwasher is empty, you can run it on the hot water cycle. No soap. You're just running the water really hot for about, I don't know, 5 minutes. Then you can put your dough in there, turn it off. Don't keep running it. And then put your dough in there and it acts like a proof box. So obviously covered, you know, but it does create that warm steaminess. You could open it a crack if you really got a real proof box like that. You can open it a crack or cover it in a little, like a moist towel. And that will create a proof box effect. So those are my tips for you. One of those ways is going to work to rise this dough. So how long does it take? Well, it's anybody's guess. It's all science. Over my pay grade, no. It depends how warm it is, depends how humid it is, it depends how you make those conditions. I would say that you want to check it every 30 minutes and see where you're at. If it's really close, maybe every 15 minutes, but you're waiting for it to get to at least the double line for the first rise, okay? See ya in an hour. So now we're gonna make the filling. The filling is going to be a little different than what anybody's probably used to. In the bakery, we cut a lot of cake tops off to make them even. We have a lot of breadcrumbs that we use from our breads that are cut or leftover breads, anything like that, muffins, all that stuff. It goes in a bucket. And we use it for many things. We sometimes just use it for if we're making Linzer tart crust, or if we want cinnamon roll filling. So this is what we're gonna do. So this is my leftover cake. I never throw anything out. This was in my freezer. And this is vanilla cake, just regular yellow cake. I cut the tops off. And you don't need a ton. So I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to save this and put it back in the freezer. So we're going to actually make our filling for the cinnamon rolls using this. So first we're going to pulse this. These are my cake crumbs. You can use stale breadcrumbs. You can use muffins. You can use pound cake. You can use any cake you want. If you want chocolate rolls, you can make chocolate cake ones. So you see that? I pulsed that. Now, you're going to add a little bit of sweetness. It is sweet already, but you're going to add a little bit of sweetness. You're going to put a little bit of brown sugar in there. Light or dark, doesn't matter to me. 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, maybe more. I try to judge it by sight. Okay, now we're going to pulse that. I'm going to get that all mixed up. Now for me, I think I want more cinnamon in this. So I'm going to add another tablespoon of cinnamon. I like mine with a lot of cinnamon. That's just me. You can leave it at this if you want. It's not going to hurt anything. Okay. I'm doing it again. You don't want to overmix this though, because then it turns into a paste. And you can use the paste, but it's a lot more difficult to spread. It's going to be easier to spread this way. All right. So now it looks like this. There's your filling, there's your crumbs. It's awesome. It's a great way to use leftovers. Now, in the bakery, we had a lot of buttercream frosting. So we would actually spread buttercream frosting on the dough, and then we put this on. I'm going to show you later. You can also use a room temperature, you definitely want this as soft as possible, stick of butter in place of the buttercream frosting. So that's going to be our filling, these two things right here. That's my baker secret. Okay. See you when the dough's done. Hi everyone, so we're back. And the dough has doubled in size. There's my little marker. So we're all ready. I did have to put it in the sun a little bit to get it to go because it was being slow. So it took about an hour and a half. So you see that I pulled it right out. Now I've got my trusty rubber mat that I've used before. I told you this makes the cleanup so much easier. It also has the markings here if you wanted to measure out exactly your rectangles or your squares. So it's doing very well. So I floured this. I'm going to add a little more flour. Not too much. You don't want it to be dry. And we're just going to roll this out. See how easy that rolls? It rolls really easy. It's a very soft dough. Now, depending on, how many rolls you want, or if you want to make jumbo rolls, that's going to make the difference. If you want more, some people like more filling, some people like less filling. So if you roll it this way more, then it's going to make a lot more of the circles, a lot more rounds. If you make it thin and long, you're going to get more rolls and less circles. If that made sense. I showed you with my hands. Italians, we talk with our hands. Okay. So there, I'm trying to make a nice rectangle. Trying to make it even. All right. It's not perfect, but you can make it perfect with your fingers. Just to get that. It's a little thick right here. I'm going to roll it a little more. All right, so I've got it about 18 inches, I'd say. I like mine fat. I like fat Cinnabon looking cinnamon rolls. All right, so we're all done rolling. This is, as I said, you can use buttercream frosting or you can use really softened butter. Do you see how soft that is? It's got to be spreadable like that. So, you know, cinnamon rolls take a little bit of prep work, so you can lay out that butter just before you're ready to use it. You can soften it in the microwave, and you can use buttercream frosting. That's what we did in the bakery. So we're going to add the butter, this softened butter. I know some people use melted butter. I don't use melted butter because melted butter, when you roll it up, goes all over the place. So I'm not a fan. All right, so that's 1 stick of butter. That's all you need. You want a very thin layer of butter. If you're using frosting, same thing. The frosting's gonna make it sweeter, that's all. If you don't like a lot of sweetness, I would go with the softened butter. Salted or unsalted, really up to you. If you're trying to lessen your salt intake, I would go with the unsalted butter. We're gonna have a very sweet filling, so sometimes the salt will cut that. So you wanna spread this as evenly as you can. About 1/8 of an inch border. Okay, so there's that. See how easy that was? Very easy. Okay, and then remember we made this cake filling? So this is my cake crumbs that we added the brown sugar and the cinnamon to. And it tastes fantastic. It smells fantastic. It smells like Cinnabon right now, even without the baking, just from this filling that I've made. So you're just gonna kind of put it all over. Sprinkle it over as best you can, as evenly as you can. Just like that. Use it all. And then just kind of with your fingers very lightly, you want to get, you know, an even amount everywhere. So you're just going to spread it really lightly. Nobody likes a cinnamon roll without cinnamon in it. Okay. So there we are. All right. So now you're going to start your roll. So you want to roll it tight. Very soft dough. You want to see that circle in there. You want to make sure you got some cinnamon in the middle as you go. Okay. You can use the mat to help you if you want to make it go evenly. If that makes your life easier and you don't like rolling. Sometimes the dough is really soft, so it's easier with the mat. So that's why I'm a big fan of the mat in general. You see how fast, like that rolls it right up. And you're not doing all the work. I love these mats. They're not expensive. Get them on Amazon, Walmart, everybody carries them. I've had this one for a long time. It's great for candy making too. All right, so we've got the seam side down. You see that? The seam is down. And as I told you, I like mine to be jumbo. So I'm gonna kind of fatten these up a little. These are a little thin for me. Okay. And I don't really want more than 9. So you gotta mark it. It's kind of tough to gauge. I usually start in half if I'm doing an even number. But I'm doing an odd number, so I'm going to make it a little harder on myself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, it was a little off. I cut this bottom out. Didn't have a lot of cinnamon in it. All right. I know some people are always like, use a dental floss. Just use a sharp knife. Dental floss, you can if you want, but I find that a nice sharp knife does the trick. You just want to seesaw very lightly. You want a light knife. You don't want a heavy knife. See how light that is? How thin and light this knife is? All right. And I'm going to put these in here really close together, because the other thing I do like is I like them to like be together and mush together. I like them to be soft. This is how you keep them soft. If you were to put them on a sheet pan, they're going to get that crustiness on the outside, which I'm not a fan of. You may be, but I'm not. So I like to keep them soft and cook them in a pan where they're close together and that they expand up. These babies are going to be big. All right. There we go. You see that? Wait till you see how good these look from the top. All right. There we go. And I'm going to cut this end off a little more. I got a little extra here. I'm going to cut that off. It was a little too big. It's got to fit in the corner. All right. There you go. See that? So guess what? These have to rise again. Now, you're not going to have that nice thing that we used before where it tells you if it's doubled. But I will tell you that, you know, these guys are going to rise pretty quickly. I would check them in, 20 to 30 minutes. And then they should be close to the size you want. And then they're going to bake up again. They're going to get big. So we'll see what they look like when we get done. Hi. So I wanted you to see what they look like before I bake them. So I did end up taking and separating 3 out because they look like they were going to be jumbo. I had covered them in plastic and they were rising pretty fast. So I took out 3 and I put 6 in here. So that's what they look like. They definitely were rising. And then I had a little glass loaf pan to put 3 in. So I can always bake these, and then you can freeze these really well. They freeze excellent. So we're gonna bake them now. And so I'm using glass pans. Because it's glass, I'm gonna bake at 350. You wanna get your internal temperature to 190 degrees. I always find that using a thermometer is the best way to make sure that you don't have raw dough. If you don't have a thermometer, then you're just going to bake them until they're golden brown. And with a glass pan, you can actually see like how brown they are on the bottom. So that's why I use glass for these, but you can still use metal. You just have to raise the temperature up to 375 instead of 350 when you're using metal. All right, I'll show you what they look like when they get done. All right, I took them out of the oven. So these are the ones without the heavy cream. That's what they look like, see that? And then these are the ones that I cooked with the heavy cream. So lighter, definitely on the outside. Okay, so the 2 of them together, that's what they look like. So we'll have to see if they taste any different.